Part 140. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1393. Zhang Yunding can't control it, and I can't. The creature master is quite clear. He knew that this was the most precious thing and also the most dangerous thing. Then don't lend the living tree seeds, otherwise it will be our catastrophe. We didn't participate back then. Facts have proved that we were right. They are indeed sunset. You can't participate now, after all, they won't appreciate you, and you have to accompany them to death. I know, I just want to see what the way of destruction is, the primordial master said. Their conversation ended here, because Ruokan had already arrived here with an unkempt intermediary. This man was dying, with scars all over his body and dim eyes, but he should be a god in the Taisu heavenly god realm, with 2 heavenly ways. Zhang Zizai, this is our death row prisoner. He is about to be executed. Kill him and let me see your way of destruction, said the Master of Life. I have no enmity with him. Who says no? He is a member of the Reborn Soul clan, and he killed many of your compatriots back then. He is now seriously injured and dying, and has no power to resist. Try it. Is that so? Zhang Zizai looked at the man with dim eyes. At this time, Zhang Yunyan nodded to himself, which meant that this man was killable. He had already lost any resistance. Zhang Zizai hardly had to do anything. He directly ended with the power of destroying the way of heaven and sent this person on the road. His power of the way of heaven was relatively weak, but the foundation was still there. After this experience, Zhang Zizai could clearly feel that after the destruction destroyed the way of heaven became the nourishment of destruction. As expected, his power of destruction increased rapidly. After integrating the curse of destruction, it had already improved a lot, and now it is obviously stronger. Did you feel it? Asked the Life Master. It's powerful. What does that mean? What can he change? With his current strength, can he defeat Chen? If he can't even deal with the Taishi heavenly god realm, how can he and Zhang Junjian resist the killings of the 4 peak dragon clans? The living creature Yuan Ho said hurriedly. She had sensed that the master of creatures had an idea, so she was anxious. This was obviously a desperate move. Flower of destruction, do you understand? If no one can block his way, he has hope to surpass Zhang Yunding. If killing Tiandao can make his destruction stronger, then as long as he does not die, one day, he will meeting. The Life Master can actually imagine it. The key is that he will die soon. As long as he is exposed, he will die immediately and there will be no chance to grow. At the very least, he doesn't even have the ability to protect himself now. Zhang Yunding and Zhang Junjian are too naive, Queen Yuan said. In fact, Zhang Zizai's performance this time has changed the situation. The Master of Creatures did not speak. In fact, the power of destroying heaven had made him think a lot. He had witnessed the growth of this destructive power with his own eyes, so he could clearly feel their family's determination for revenge. Zhang Yunding, are you serious? He asked. Brother, he has been working hard for thousands of years just to get revenge and make a comeback. Do you think he is serious? Ruoxiu said excitedly. He was silent again. Are you crazy? Do you need to gamble your life? These nonsense have nothing to do with us. If you participate, whatever happens to the living Yuan clan in the future will be your responsibility, said the living Yuan queen angrily. Let's do this. Zhang Zizai, you said what can you do if you and Zhang Junjian return to the Peak Dragon clan? Then let me see, what can you do now? The living Prime Minister ignored the living Prime Queen and looked at her. Zhang Zizai. Just now, Empress Shengling Yuan said that I can't even deal with cousin Ruokan, but she was wrong. Now, I can deal with him. Zhang Zizai's tone was very calm, but it was absolutely thunderous. This is a challenge. And it's a proactive challenge. Very good, that's it. If you can defeat Ruokan, you can take away the living tree species, but if you lose, no matter what your plans are, from now on, don't step into my living world. The Master of Creatures has made a decision. The Empress of Creation Yuan wanted to say something else, but it was useless now. In the end, Ruokan patted her shoulder and said with a smile, "Mom, what are you worrying about? Is this little kid 100,000 years old? Do you dare to challenge it? Haha, just don't worry. I am less than 30 years old this year," Zhang Zizai said. Those two were laughing like crazy. They were less than 30 years old. How could they have such good fortune? He was indeed born more than 20 years ago, Zhang Yunyan said. He never lies. This sentence came out of his mouth very seriously. Are you born as a god king? Asked the primordial master of creatures. No, he was born as a mortal at the lowest level. He is the remaining son of Zhang Yunting and Ruohua in a mortal body. In fact, he did not start practicing until he was 15 years old, and he became a god and a god along the way. So far, 15 years, not even that, Ruoxiu added. Keep blowing, and, do you think we are children who are easy to trick? What kind of person he is, you will know when he comes forward. Ruokan's voice became colder. Now that we have a bet, it's easy. Just fight. It can be seen that the Master of Creatures was still shocked by Zhang Zizai's destruction of heaven. This may be the only way to shock him. Maybe he won't say it, but he still regrets what happened back then. Zhang Zizai could feel that in fact he was not that disgusting, but that his aunt and cousin were too snobbish and targeted them too much. Maybe this had something to do with Ruokan not getting Dongyang Zheng? Anyway, these are old things. And now, Zhang Zizai is facing this person who used to be very close to his brother, but in the end, they had no choice but to become cold. In fact, Zhang Yunyan had given this person information. He was indeed not very capable. As the only son of the living beings Yuan Lord, when the sons of other peak race masters already had 4 heavenly paths, he still had not yet, and was still in the Taishi Tianshen realm. Back then, Zhang Junjian could be on par with his father. In recent years, he has been trying his best to comprehend the 4th heavenly path, and he feels that he is almost there. In the living beings Yuan clan, he is called the Dark War God, and his totem is called the Unborn Dark Hell World Tree Totem. He is the Dark Messenger of the living beings Yuan clan. His 3 heavenly paths are the Silence Heavenly Path, the Dark Heavenly Path, and the Living Beings Heavenly Path. To be honest, he has gone against the true living beings heavenly path. But now, he doesn't think there is any problem in dealing with his nemesis's younger brother. Want to take the living tree seeds from me? Then you may have to leave your life here, Ruokan sneered. Chenur, this is the opportunity your father gave you. Take this opportunity to control him and make it impossible for him to escape, the living queen said. Otherwise, if the negotiation fails, they may take the opportunity to slip away. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 1394. This is a secret battle that does not need to be made public, so the battle venue is certainly not here. This is the core position of the World Tree of Living Beings. The fighting movement of their level will definitely set off huge waves. Therefore, before the battle, they moved the venue to outside the World Tree of Living Beings. This place is far away from the horizon and there is no one around. Then set up restrictions around it, and it naturally became a closed battle that no one can know. Under this premise, Zhang Zizai has already stood opposite his cousin Ruokan. He saw the shadow of Zhang Junjian in Zhang Zizai, who was so confident and so outstanding. A period of time that was always compared has emerged again, like a demon in the heart, circling in his heart again. Ruokan's face turned cold, and black mist lingered on his body. In fact, he is an alien among the living beings, because his way of heaven takes the dark route, which is a more violent and cruel route. People call it the wrath of living beings. The wrath of living beings, the dark god of war. In front of Zhang Zizhe, after he had an idea, he just smiled coldly and took action directly. For him, this is also an opportunity. He can completely suppress and imprison Zhang Zizhe, and then persuade his father to take away the flower of destruction. This is the opportunity for their living beings. He directly changed into a totem tree, which was his strongest state. In front of Zhang Zizhe, an extremely huge black tree appeared between heaven and earth. This black tree covered the sky and the sun. For example, the totem beast of the God King was dozens of times larger. It was like a small world with countless branches, countless vines, and countless barbs on it. They were all his most terrifying weapons. Of course, the most powerful is the power of the three great ways of heaven flowing in the leaves, branches, and trunks. The way of destruction, the way of darkness, and the way of living beings, these three ways of heaven flow on this world tree of unborn dark hell, like three rivers, connected end to end, eternal and immortal. This God's evolution source, the unborn dark hell, is a kind of domain control. At this time, this world is completely shrouded in the dead silence of darkness. Countless death auras are circulating between heaven and earth, and reincarnation is immortal and eternal. Here it describes the dead silence of hell. Between heaven and earth, there is nothing except the towering and tall unborn dark hell world tree in front of you. It covers the sky and the sun, high above, with endless power and authority. Endless suppression. Those death auras surround the world and give Zhang Zizhe countless suppress ions invisibly. In this field, all of Zhang Zizhe's perceptions are compressed to the limit. The next moment, the opponent has already attacked with the suppression of the unborn dark hell. He has hundreds of millions of vines on his body, which can trigger the power of the three great heavenly ways. When waving, it is eternal and endless. Nirvana is also a kind of destruction. The dark heavenly way creates this dark world, and the living heavenly way makes him immortal and invincible. Frankly speaking, even if Ruokan is a little useless to those of the same status, in front of Zhang Zizhe, he is still a rare top master in the world. There is no second person in the entire 49 god realms. If he goes to the 49 god realms, he can also dominate the world. If there were no Zhang Junjian and Zhang Yi, he would be the strongest in the world. Zhang Zizhe never dared to underestimate this opponent. In fact, this is a rare peak battle for him. This is an opponent stronger than the Dragon Emperor. Although he is stronger than he was then, he does not have enough understanding of his own progress now. He is not sure whether he can deal with him. However, for the future of the Peak Dragon clan, for revenge, and for the resurrection of his brother and fellow gods, regardless of life or death, he will take down this cousin today. Let me show you what a god is. Ruokan's laughter echoed between heaven and earth. He had enough attitude to do so. At this time, countless vines carrying the power of the three great ways of heaven had already covered the sky and destroyed Zhang Zizhe. At the same time, he also took out the heavenly artifact, which was the top heavenly artifact of the living beings Yuan clan, named Huntian Black Star. At this time, above Zhang Zizhe's head, a huge black star appeared. The black star was high above, and fierce black light burst out from it. There were enough of them, and they were like sword energy, sweeping towards Zhang Zizhe like crazy, as if everything in the world could make this Huntian black star into a hornet's nest, or even fragments. Zhang Zizhe saw that this person was much stronger than the Dragon Emperor. If Xuanhuan could help him and let her use the two ways of heaven for himself, he should be able to defeat his opponent. The rules did not say that Xuanhuan could not help, but now, Zhang Zizhe only wanted to rely on himself. His fighting will and anger had burned to the strongest time at this time. In an instant, his body split into four, avoiding the black star of the sky. In the process of splitting into four, he turned into four black dragons. Years, the universe, all living beings, souls. The four origin holy dragons, at the first time, successively sacrificed and refined Zhang Zizai's heavenly artifacts. His heavenly artifacts can be said to be dazzling, but each one is actually at the top level, especially the origin flower, which was once very famous in this origin place, because it is the only man-made heavenly artifact between heaven and earth. The six thunder flame pillar, the universe cauldron, the anti-chaos clock, the soul-devouring sword, etc., are actually the heavenly artifacts of the origin place, and were given to Zhang Zizai by Zhang Junjian for use. Of course, there is the unknown Zilong Tower among them, which is now Zhang Zizai's strongest divine weapon. At this moment, the Zilong Tower was born, and Zhang Zizai could only use it to suppress it, but even so, it was enough to suppress Ruokan, making it difficult for him to fully exert the power of the three heavenly ways, and the whole person's state dropped significantly. The effect of the Zilong Tower almost made him only able to exert the strength of the Taisu heavenly god realm. What is this? Not only was Ruokan shocked, but even the living beings Yuanzu and the living beings Yuanho were puzzled by the Zilong Tower at this time. They could feel the terrifying power of the Zilong Tower. To be honest, they basically knew what divine weapons there were in the entire origin land, but they knew nothing about this Zilong Tower. When the Zilong Tower appeared, Zhang Zizai exploded. He was equivalent to Ruokan's 4 opponents. It was not too much for 4 opponents to use these divine weapons. Each person had at most 1 or 2. The Zilong Tower was controlled by the 4 origin holy dragons. The 4 origin holy dragons were actually integrated, so the attack was very smooth. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1395. This is not the first time that Zhang Zizai has cooperated like this. First, he uses soul suppression to control. His heavenly soul can be said to be the most terrifying heavenly soul between heaven and earth. It has the fusion of the 9-headed ancestral dragon tower's illusory dragon, which is unprecedented in history, so the soul suppression that erupts is also very terrifying, comparable to the soul clan of the deceased. The Chaos Soul Bell, the illusionary Sky Eye, and the soul capture mirror suppress it, plus the control of the soul-devouring sword, flying in the sky with the sword. The soul-devouring sword shuttles between heaven and earth, flying in the sky and hiding in the ground. Once it hits, Ruokan, who is weak in the soul, will inevitably suffer a wound to his heavenly soul. The soul origin holy dragon seems to be the most vulnerable, but in fact it has given Ruokan the same restrictions as the ancestral dragon tower. One level of suppression plus another level of suppression directly annoyed him. But when he was getting angry, Zhang Zizai's other origin holy dragon bodies had already suppressed him, and the power of time and space directly covered his head. The Kinkan Cauldron, the Shattered World Light, the Reverse Chaos Clock, and the Reverse Flow River were entangled in chaos. His time and space power was not strong for a god of this level, but the key was that it was driven by the divine source before, but now the time and space artifact was driven by the power of destroying the way of heaven. When his power of destroying the way of heaven broke out for the first time and collided head-on with the opponent's 3 ways of heaven, the power of the time and space artifact was even stronger than Zhang Zizai had imagined. Some of the elemental power of the 9 dragons Chaos Soul Bell, wind, fire, thunder, ice, and frost storms, were also exerted by the Kinkan origin holy dragon. Under the blessing of the power of destruction, these powers were also extremely violent and naturally suppressed the way of heaven. How did this guy create it? He even has the means of the Time Beast clan, the Void Beast clan, and the Rebirth Soul clan, plus the means of the Peak Dragon clan. The living beings UN Lord looked at it very seriously. He knew that this matter was very serious. He must make a judgment. This is related to the eternal event of the living beings UN clan. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. He looked carefully, but still didn't expect that Zhang Zizai's holy dragon of the origin of all living things was his strongest burst now. The pure power of the divine body rushed up and blocked all the suppression of the three great heavenly ways and the Hunshan black star in the front. He was able to hold on, and at this moment he had rushed to the front of the Wushan dark hell world tree, and directly started the violent killing with the 6 thunder flames. The support for everything is still the power of the destruction of the heavenly way. This is his foundation now. Get lost. Facing Zhang Zizai's siege, Ruokan was not frightened. He once again sacrificed a kind of heavenly artifact, called Eternal Night Grinding Wheel. This Eternal Night Grinding Wheel is a bit similar to the grinding wheel of Taixu Universe soul refining technique, but it is actually quite different, because this Eternal Night Grinding Wheel brings darkness. When this Eternal Night Grinding Wheel rotates and grinds, it seems to grind everything in the world into pieces and be swallowed by darkness. The confrontation between the two can be said to have reached the most intense moment. Zhang Zizai endured the suppression of the Eternal Night Grinding Wheel. His cold eyes looked at this high and arrogant guy. Under the suppression of the ancestral dragon tower, he was still very strong and could hold on in Zhang Zizai's complex means. You are indeed good, but after all, you are too young, you have learned too much, and you have lost your foundation. Besides, the power of your flower of destruction doesn't seem to be very good, Ruokan sneered. Really, Zhang Zizai's face was cold. He never cared about what the other party said. Everything at present was just his attempt. In fact, during this attack, he did not use the part from the Curse of Destruction. The Curse of Destruction was almost half of Zhang Zizai's current power to destroy the heavenly way, and this half was even more brutal and fierce, and was born completely for destruction. At this moment, when his eyes shone and he suddenly poured all his power into the explosion, his temperament completely changed. Now he was the most terrifying weapon between heaven and earth, the real destroyer of the gods. The power of the Curse of Destruction exploded, and all the gods, including his 4 origin holy dragon bodies, were directly different. The suppression of the Zilong Tower was even more fierce at this time. Boom! When all the power was concentrated together, Ruokan never expected that he would suddenly collapse across the board. For a while, the soul of the gods was lost, and in a trance, his trembling body was torn into countless wounds by the torrent of space fragments of the Kinkan Ding. The reverse chaos clock directly made him fall into the quagmire, and then the flames and lightning of the 6 thunder and flame pillars exploded on him, simply destroying everything. The most important thing is that the 3 great powers of the heavenly Dao that he was most proud of were truly destroyed in the face of Zhang Zizai's destructive power. When the two met, the 3 heavenly Daos all became soft eggs, and they were not even controlled by him. Boom boom boom. At this moment, its divine body, divine soul, and heavenly Dao were injured at the same time. Ah! Ruokan screamed repeatedly, and even the totem giant tree was broken by Zhang Zizai, and he had to return to human form. Even so, he still had a lot of destructive power on his body, like a devil entangled, and even his living heavenly Dao wanted to revive flesh and blood, and the speed became extremely slow. This is the result of the battle. Zhang Zizai showed mercy in the end. Otherwise, he would have been able to kill Ruokan. Zhang Zizai himself had just witnessed how violent the power of the destruction curse was. This was only 1/20th of it. No wonder even Zhang Yunting could suppress it. It was really too terrible. After the attack, his mind was furious. It was very difficult for him to stop in time. This was the real power of destruction. It was not so easy to control it. Even at this moment, his palms were trembling, and there was an endless desire to fight in his body, making him restless. Until Juxian took his hand and said in his ear, "Well done, I will reward you well when I go back." Thinking of her reward, Zhang Zizai was satisfied and the mania in his heart disappeared. Sure enough, the gentle beauty could calm the irritable mood and divert Zhang Zizai's attention. Now, except for Ruokan who was still crying out in pain, there was no other sound around. No one spoke, and even looked at Zhang Zizai in a daze. He was now unharmed, while his opponent, his cousin Ruokan, who was much older than him, was now in a state of embarrassment. In the end, Zhang Zizai took back the power of destroying the heavenly way, and he was able to recover as before. But it must be said that his face was already very ugly, completely dark, and now he has become a real dark god of war. Just defeating the opponent, your power of destruction seems to have grown again, the Lord of Life and Soul suddenly said. Zhang Zizai was dazed for a moment, and he felt it carefully. It was indeed as the Lord of Life and Soul said, defeating these three heavenly ways, his way of destroying the heavenly way was nourished, and it seemed to have grown a little. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1396. He nodded and said, "Thank you, cousin, for showing mercy and helping me." He said this to give this guy a step down. To be honest, they are all relatives after all. If they bow their heads but don't look up, they won't completely fall out. They will also need their help in the future recovery plan. Ruokan snorted coldly, his face still very gloomy. Only then did the others react from Zhang Zizai's fear. Even the living creature, the Yuan Queen, was uncertain. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. To be honest, this time's performance has exceeded their expectations, even beyond the expectations of Zhang Yunyan and Ruoxiu. The two of them looked at each other and saw each other's smiles. It was obvious that the hope of their family in the future was already very high. Now, especially, Zhang Zizai has defeated Ruokan. Zhang Zizai, are you sure about your future? The living creature Yuanzu looked at all the details of the battle. His expression changed and his eyes seemed firmer. Uncle, I can't say for sure, but everything in the world cannot escape faith. I have this faith, which is enough to survive. If I can inherit the kindness of the living spirit Yuan clan today, I will definitely repay it in the future. Anyway, I will definitely not be involved. He knew that their worries were nothing more than exposing the matter. Letting the four peak races know about the life tree species would make them take revenge. Therefore, the Life Master is also making a gamble. It has nothing to do with you, just hang it up. You used to know the truth, but now you are confused. How did we survive the last disaster? Looking for the flower of destruction is the fault of Zhang Yunding himself, not us, the living queen said to him anxiously. Dad, you have to think clearly. If you make the wrong move, there will be no turning back. We, the Yuan clan, cannot afford to lose. So what if Zhang Zizai defeats me? He can deal with Zhang Yunhai and the four peak races. Join forces. In recent years, the development of these four tribes has been much stronger than ours. Ruokan gritted his teeth. You have lost like this, you still have the nerve to speak. Step back. The Soul Master took a deep breath, and he glanced at Zhang Zizai one last time. According to the truth, a gentleman cannot break his promise, but at this moment, he's still struggling. He has only grown up for 30 years, and he can defeat even Ruokan. What else can he not do in the future with such a person? The Primordial Master felt the power of the destruction curse just now better than anyone else. The scary thing is not the present, but his growth, but his essence. His essence is the flower of destruction. The ancient elders said that if you get the last piece of the flower of destruction, you will become the master of destruction and control the world. Isn't Zhang Zizai on his way to becoming the master of destruction? Zhang Yunding missed it once, but he won't make it a second time. What kind of person is he? After countless changes in his heart, he suddenly looked at Zhang Zizai, nodded and said, then from now on, my creature Yuan clan and your peak dragon clan are comrades in arms again. This sentence was an agreement. Zhang Zizai was overjoyed and thanked him quickly. Zhang Yunyan and the others all laughed, and Ruoxiu even shed tears. All the hard work for so many years was now worth it? The Queen of Creatures wanted to say something more, but the Master of Creatures had already told her to shut up. Now that he had decided, he stopped delaying and directly took out a green box, handed it to Zhang Zizai, and said, "Take it, your mother knows how to use it, and tell her by the way, it's been too long. Yes, I miss her. Ruohua is his biological sister." At this moment, Zhang Zizai could actually feel that he regretted not helping out back then. He has been thinking about it for so many years, which proved that his original decision was correct, but what is really correct? Is this all the regrets of so many years? Until this moment, when Zhang Zizai appeared, when he succeeded in impressing himself, he made a choice. Go ahead and get some as soon as possible. Zhang Zizai was also willing to call him uncle. "I will definitely bring you the message," Zhang Zizai said seriously. "Good. Brother, I will also go over there to help and bring good news as soon as possible," Ruoxiu said with a smile. In fact, she also wanted to see Xiaoyu. "Go, everyone go," the primordial master nodded. Zhang Zizai couldn't wait to get the living tree seeds. Here he opened the origin cave with Zhang Yunyan and the others, then left through the origin cave, disappeared into the world of the origin, and returned to the ancient realm. After they left, the expression on the face of the creature Yuan Queen was extremely miserable. She shook her head and smiled bitterly, saying, "You are such an old fool. It's really over now. Our creature Yuan clan is finished. Stop it. Just watch, I have confidence in them." "No matter how confident you are, we are all cannon fodder," said the living creature Yuanho. "Dad, you really shouldn't be like this. How can this little kid become their hope for a comeback? What can Zhang Junjian do even if he comes back? Can he defeat the 4 peak races by himself? Just watch, they will come back this time. Returning is not death in the end, and then everyone will know that the living tree species is ours, and then we will be finished," Ruokan also said with a sad face. The Soul Master pursed his lips. He was too lazy to say anything more. After a long time, he said, "Time will give the answer." After saying that, he disappeared in front of their mother and son and went back to wait. "Mom, what are you going to do?" Ruokan asked hurriedly. "I have a plan." Zhang Yunyan and the others followed them. "We can spread the word that Zhang Yunyan stole the living tree seeds and suspected that he was going to save Zhang Junjian. In this way, we can put the blame on Zhang Yunyan. After all, he is also a member of the Peak Dragon clan." The Queen of Living Spirits narrowed her eyes and said, "But if this is the case, Father will be furious, right? You can also pass it to Zhang Yunhai alone and let him prepare. When the time comes, Zhang Yunhai will get the benefit and will testify for us," the Queen of Living Spirits said. "Okay, this is equivalent to leaving a backup plan, but if this is the case, Zhang Junjian and the others will go back for revenge, wouldn't they be walking into a trap?" Ruokan asked. "Aren't they very confident and have strong faith? Then let's see how strong their faith is. We won't reveal Zhang Zizai's affairs. We will just say that the tree species of living beings have been stolen. Whether Zhang Yunhai can stop it depends on his own luck. Anyway, it's not easy for him to die. As long as he doesn't die, he can testify for us." "Okay," Mother is still thoughtful. "In addition, quickly activate the Heaven and Earth Holy Spirit Guardian formation and prepare for defense. Who knows what will happen in the future after your father made this stupid decision. It's better to prepare early. Oh, I really can't figure him out." Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1397. In fact, for Zhang Zizai, this mission with many variables was completed relatively easily. As expected, the living spirit Yuanho and Ruokan were both very difficult to deal with. Fortunately, the living spirit Yuan Lord was more insightful and decisive than expected. In fact, I know that although the living spirit Yuan clan has been safe and sound in recent years, He still regrets what happened back then, especially to my sister Ruoxiu said on the way back. She checked and found that the green box was indeed filled with living spirit tree seeds. With the living spirit tree seeds, Junjian and the others can escape from the sea of suffering. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. In fact, they had asked for this living spirit tree seed countless times and talked about it for a long time. Today, the living spirit Yuan Lord made a decision. The fundamental reason was that the hope brought by Zhang Zizai moved him. Otherwise, the living spirit Yuan Lord would not have agreed, even to save his nephew. When they returned to the ancient world, except for Zhang Yunting who was still in the evolution world, everyone else had already come out of the evolution world, including Ruo Hua, Dan Jiangjing, Zhang Yuning and Ling Dang. When Zhang Zizai and the others returned, Ruo Hua was holding Ling Dang. The little girl nestled in her arms and kept calling Grandma. Ruo Hua, who was waiting anxiously, felt much relieved at this time. At this time, the origin cave opened, and Zhang Zizai and his group returned. When the emerald green box in his hand appeared in their sight, Ruo Hua's eyes trembled, and then tears fell. After so many years, she finally waited. This means that her brother, who had resented her for countless years, finally chose to help them. For her, this is too important. Grandma, why are you crying? Which bad guy made you sad? Is it my dad? I will help you bully him, Ling Dang said in a milky voice. You are the only one who is bothering with trivial matters. Go away. Zhang Zizai smiled and picked her up, put her in Juxian's arms, then looked at his mother, then looked at Zhang Junjian in the crystal coffin next to him, took a deep breath, and said, the tree seeds of life have been obtained. Let's get started without further delay. Yes, as a mother, she must feel uncomfortable watching her son suffer for so many years. This is the moment to save Zhang Junjian. She is more impatient than anyone else. You go out first, my sister, and I will control the tree seeds of life together, Ruoxiu said. Everyone nodded. The tree seeds of life have arrived. The most urgent task is, of course, to do the great event of resurrection that they have longed for many years. Everyone went out together, leaving Ruoxiu and Ruhua and their sisters. After coming out of the palace, Zhang Yunyan asked about Ruo Xiaoyu's location, and then said, it should take some time for them to be resurrected. I will go and pick up Xiaoyu. They must start to take good care of their daughter when they come here this time. They haven't seen each other since she was born. More than 20 years is just a blink of an eye for them, but it is Xiaoyu's entire life now. After Zhang Yunyan left, they were the only ones left. Zhang Zizai glanced at his sister and saw that she seemed to be a little confused until now, so he smiled and said, how is it? Is it exciting? More than exciting. When my mother told me all this, I felt like I was dreaming for a few days. Zhang Yuning said, a little embarrassed. Just get used to it. I used to worry that we might not be real siblings, but now I find that we are still real. It's great, Zhang Zizai said with a smile. This is annoying. Why are you and your brother so powerful, but I don't have any ability at all, Zhang Yuning said with a smile. Sister, this is happiness. Having such a brother to protect you, this is the feeling of being protected. No one in the world can bully you, Zhang Zizai said with a smile. That's true. I'll just be responsible for happiness, she smiled slightly. In fact, she is a very warm-hearted person, unrestrained, without disputes, and even without desires. She will be very happy. Speaking of this, she pursed her lips and suddenly said sadly, in fact, I also want to be like you and my brother, to avenge our relatives and compatriots, to avenge our parents, to take back the dignity and everything of our family. If I can do this, it would be great. Now you are on the battlefield, but I can only wait here anxiously. This is her sorrow. Sister Zhang Zizai patted her shoulder and smiled, have I ever disappointed you in all these years? No, you are always so powerful, and you can even take back the species of living trees. That's it, listen carefully, I will never let you down in my life, so you just wait and see, time will give you all the answers. One day, our family will happily return to our homeland, and live the same life as before, forever and ever, Zhang Zizai said seriously. I believe you, she finally smiled, and then said to Juxian, when my brother is impulsive, please persuade him more. Of course, this little rascal can't escape from my palm, Juxian said. Hey, give me some face, Zhang Zizai said with a smile. They all laughed. It started. Dong Yangjing was actually staring at the palace while laughing. She had also waited for this moment for too long. When the tree of life arrived, she was actually crying in the corner. Sister-in-law, don't worry, your peerless hero will be back soon, just like before, and in the king of Zhang City, Zhang Yuning said while holding her hand. She now knows that Dong Yangjing at that time was just a small part of her, accompanying Zhang Zizai's growth, but what does it matter? Dong Yangjing in the origin continent is no different from Dong Yangjing now. There is no difference between the former brother and Zhang Junjian at this moment. The only difference is that Zhang Yi has grown up. He is old and still single. His generation is too low, and he has to call Zhang Yuning aunt when he sees her. It's ridiculous to say that, after all, he is older than the Dragon Emperor. Zhang Zizai can already feel the majestic life force from the palace, which is equivalent to the life force of the world tree of living spirits. It is said that this tree of living spirits is the best medicine in the world, and it almost has the effect of resurrecting the dead. It is the only treasure between heaven and earth that can revive these severely injured and sleeping gods. Now, with a little feeling, one can feel how terrifying this life force is. Even Zhang Yuning cannot bear this power, so Zhang Zizai and everyone else are waiting in the evolution world. They accompanied Zhang Yunding and waited quietly. The breath of the destruction curse was everywhere. Zhang Zizai absorbed some of the destruction curse this time. His destructive power was still growing, and it seemed endless. Later, Zhang Yunyan brought Ruo Xiaoyu with him. Along the way, Ruo Xiaoyu already knew all this. Unexpectedly, Long Yan, Shen Xiao, Su Yuexi, Lu Dingxing, Su Qinyu and others were also brought here at the same time. Why are you here? Zhang Zizai's voice became weaker and weaker. Is it not okay? I want you to repay your debt of love. Su Yuexi was still so arrogant. Zhang Zizai was just a headache for her. She also ran to Juxian and swaggered. Juxian was smiling now, and he would definitely pinch himself when he turned around. What are you capable of now? Let me see. Shen Xiao was very curious about this. Don't look, I'm afraid you can't control yourself, Zhang Zizai said. Get lost, you second-hand stuff, I don't like you anymore, Shen Xiao said with disdain. Damn, I was actually looked down upon. In fact, their arrival would not affect anything, at most they would just laugh and scold. However, that day finally came, and there was already movement in the ancient realm. Perhaps, their peak dragon clan had returned. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1398. I have been waiting for this moment for too long. The first time he saw those groups of coffins, Zhang Zizai was filled with shock. He didn't know who they were, but now he already knew that these were his relatives. Their family came to the ancient realm from the evolutionary world and came to the origin cave. Looking at the palace full of life power, their eyes were full of expectation. Back, finally back. They were all seriously injured and dying. With Zhang Yunding's help, they were able to escape here. They could only survive by sleeping. In these countless years of slumber, there are actually a small number of peak dragon gods who have been helpless for eternity. These are blood hatreds. Living tree species seem to be close at hand, but are actually out of reach. It is not easy in itself to allow the master of living beings to wade through troubled waters. The strong life force has come out of the palace, and it is a very comfortable breath, which is comfortable to smell. The family stood together, and Zhang Zizai saw that the eyes of Dong Yangjing and Zhang Yi were already trembling. They were the most important people to them. Of course, he is also the most important person to Zhang Zizai. He held the bell and gently stroked her hair. The little girl knew that she was very nervous now, and she was also particularly well behaved, because she knew that this was her uncle's road to rebirth. They said nothing and waited quietly. Time has passed, and after waiting here for less than half a month, I can actually feel that the aura in this palace is getting stronger and stronger with age. It is the peak aura of the peak dragon clan. Only if they become stronger and stronger, only if they are resurrected, only if they truly return, will they have such a powerful aura. The peak dragon clan returns at this moment. This was once the most elite power of the peak dragon clan countless years ago. To make them reborn, the living tree species actually requires a lot of power. After this use, the living tree species will not be able to be used again for at least 1,000,000 years. This is the number one sacred object for healing between heaven and earth. There is only one living tree species in such a big living world tree. The millions of years of creation of this living tree species should have saved a group of people like them who were seriously injured and sleeping. The main thing is to expel the power of heaven in them. The enemy's power of heaven is still in the body and destroys the internal organs. Otherwise, they would have reborn themselves long ago. Finally, the moment arrived. After a certain moment, the vigorous life force suddenly disappeared and was replaced by the majestic breath of the gods. It must be thousands of gods who can have such majestic breath. It must have been a success. At this time, Dong Yangjing and Zhang Yi couldn't wait to rush inside. Zhang Zizai followed them, and their whole family followed him. 9 immortals also followed behind him. When Zhang Zizai's family was reunited, she also felt the surprise of this reunion. After coming in, Zhang Zizai saw it. The former coffins are now broken one by one. In their place are the gods one by one. They stand neatly. They have known everything for a long time and have not been alive for a long time. Most of them have their eyes closed. Feeling the taste of life, regaining control of his body, and regaining control of his own power of heaven. Come back. Among them, Zhang Zizai saw him coming out of the crystal coffin, Zhang Junjian. He is tall and slender, handsome and domineering, majestic and gentle. He is also adapting to the feeling of being alive and controlling his own power. However, when he saw a beautiful figure in front of him, a long-lost smile appeared on his lips. He stretched out his hand and held the woman in his arms. Dong Yangjing shed tears. It has been too long to wait for this embrace for so many years. Dad, I want a hug too. Zhang Yi opened his hands and came over with a playful smile. Go away. Zhang Junjian glared at him, but actually there was a smile on his lips. But he was always there, and he and Dong Yangjing could talk at any time, but this time, with flesh and blood contact, he truly existed. Mom, Aunt, thank you for your hard work. Zhang Zizai came to their side. Now the living tree seeds in their hands had dimmed, and were now no different from stones. Ruoxia put them away. It's not hard work, it's worth it. Ruohua looked at these children and actually wanted to cry. It was like a dream for their family to have such a reunion as today. Very good, everyone is fine. Brothers are all alive. Zhang Junjian looked at everyone, and heat gradually emerged from his heart. They're all back. The Pinnacle Dragon Clan. The hatred they carry is too deep. Those who once put them into a desperate situation of life and death are all enemies. Young Master. The gods are very clear about the ins and outs. Although they are sleeping, they often communicate. Zhang Yunding was once the peak dragon master, and Zhang Junjian has always been their young master. But now, there is another young master. Zhang Junjian looked at everyone around him with tears in his eyes. My relatives are all around me, and I am happier than you. Your relatives have either passed away long ago, or they are still in the place of origin, and they don't even know that you are still alive. The gods all gritted their teeth and lowered their heads in silence. Zhang Junjian hit the mark on their pain. Yes, it had been too long. Their relatives were either gone or still under Zhang Yunhai's rule. Traitors, minions. Everyone, you once followed my father and swore to die rather than obey. From now on, our family will never treat you unfairly. From now on, we will work together to take back our homeland, and we will work together to take back our dignity. Young master, needless to say, we have never forgotten the hatred from thousands of years ago. Since we are lucky enough to be reborn this time, we must come back and swear to be loyal to the death, not only for the Dragon Lord, not only for the young master, but also for ourselves. This is also our own hatred and our own dignity. We don't want our descendants to live under the rule of traitors. Among the gods, a god wearing golden armor said in a deep voice. Each of them had the same look in their eyes. This is not the hatred of Zhang Zizai's family, but the hatred of all of them. Dying here for such a long time, how much hatred and anger they have, Zhang Zizai can hardly understand. His life is really short, so he doesn't know how painful it is. Especially today, their relatives are still in the place of origin, still under the rule of traitors, without the slightest dignity. There is a fiery anger in their eyes, which makes it almost unbearable for them to waste any time. Since they have come back, they can't tolerate it for a moment. This is the moment when their fighting spirit is the most turbulent. In this case, act immediately, Zhang Junjian ordered directly. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng Qingyang. Chapter 1399. He survived not to recuperate, but to fight the moment of rebirth. Yes. The eyes of the gods were already red. This means that the battle is about to begin. Zhang Junjian knew very well who would go to the battle. From now on, people had a backbone, and everything was arranged by him. Mom, you stay here to accompany my father. He must have been very uncomfortable without your protection during this time. And aunt, if you help, I'm afraid it will implicate the Yuan clan of living beings, so you stay here and help take care of my father. Xiaojing, you stay here too. In fact, using the living tree seeds to revive them is also a bit consuming. So Ruohua is not in a fighting state now. I can go. I don't care about anything, Zhang Yunyan said. I didn't fight for the Peak Dragon clan back then, which is the biggest regret of my life, so don't stop me this time. I was also one of the 4 great dragon generals, and my blood and soul are all from the Peak Dragon clan. Yeah, Zhang Junjian nodded, and he didn't stop him. Zhang Junjian was a very decisive person. He decided to return for a fight. Resting and reorganizing was meaningless. And he knew that all the hope actually lies in Zhang Zizai. Zizai, next, I will pave the way for you. You go up along this road. I want to see you reach a height that your father has not reached. If you have such a day, I will die without regrets, Zhang Junjian said. I won't let you die. Zhang Zizai knew what he meant. From now on, he will try every possible way to make his Tiandao grow. He has the power comparable to the master of the living beings and the masters of other peak races. He is a symbol of the glory of the peak dragon race. He has the strength to do it. Let's go. Zhang Zizai had expected that the moment of their rebirth was the moment for their family to make a comeback and return to the peak dragon race. He used the black dragon talisman to open the gate of the origin cave. Zhang Junjian led them in one after another. Except for Ruohua, Ruoxiu, and Dongyang Jing, those who had the fighting power of gods basically stepped onto the battlefield. As Zhang Junjian's biological son, Zhang Yi naturally followed him. Of course, Juxian was also an important helper of Zhang Zizai this time. From this moment on, she and Zhang Zizai have been inseparable. Watching her two sons step onto the battlefield and disappear in the origin cave, Ruohua finally couldn't help but shed tears. Just like watching Zhang Zizai go to Yanlongxiu to save his brother. A mother worries when her son is thousands of miles away, let alone sending her children to the battlefield of life and death. Sister, don't worry. Your two sons are extraordinary people in the world. Each of them is a child of heaven. No one can stop them. You have to believe in them. Ruoxiu gently held her hand and said. I know. She wiped away her tears and said, it's just that I don't want them to bear this. What are you afraid of? You also have the key to the three realms. The advantage of the three realms is that it can connect everything. When necessary, we can appear in the three realms at any time, and they can return to the three realms at any time. We can still help, Ruoxiu said. This is the most important function of the three realms. As long as you have the key, you can enter the three realms no matter where you are. Two keys can take them with you. This means that Zhang Zizai can return to the three realms at any time to replenish the power of the destruction curse. In fact, the key to everything is still Zizai. I hope he can create a miracle this time. Ruoxiu watched the gods disappear one by one and murmured to herself. Grandma, did Daddy go to beat the bad guys? Lingling asked curiously. Yes, it was the bad guys who bullied us. Then Grandma, don't cry, okay. Daddy will beat the bad guys to a pulp, and Uncle is a handsome man. Okay. At this time, the little granddaughter with a sweet mouth was simply a caring little cotton-padded jacket. No matter how much worry Ruohua had in her heart, it all disappeared at this time. Mom Zhang Yuning took her arm and leaned on her arms. Just like in Yanlongxiu, they can do it. This time it's not Yanlongxiu, it's their former home, the biggest battlefield between heaven and earth. After passing through the origin cave, they descended on the holy dragon realm again. This time, it's a 1,000-man army of gods, returning in a mighty and shocking manner, and everyone has blood hatred. Zhang Junjian has already introduced Zhang Zizai to the generals of their peak dragon clan. Now Zhang Junjian is the strongest among them, with 5 heavenly paths, followed by Zhang Yunyan, who has 4 heavenly paths. He was once one of the 4 dragon generals of the peak dragon clan, ranked last, and was the last to have 4 heavenly paths. Among Zhang Junjian's reborn subordinates, there is also a god with 4 heavenly paths, the 4th level Taishu heavenly god realm god, who was also one of the 4 dragon generals of the peak dragon clan, and the 2nd ranked golden dragon general Zhang Yunfan. Zhang Yunyan is the silver dragon general. These two are the strongest forces in their 1,000-man heavenly god army, except for Zhang Junjian. In addition, there are more than 20 gods in the Taishi heavenly god realm, including Zhang Yi, who have 3 heavenly paths. They are the top forces, and each of them is an invincible god in the 49 divine realms. There are more than 100 people in the Taisu heavenly god realm. The rest are all gods of the 1st level, with more than 800 people. In fact, this is a huge power for the current 6 peak races. The glorious peak dragon race at that time had at least 4 times the power of the current one. At the peak, it had nearly 4,000 gods. But in that battle, more than 2,000 people died directly, and only 1,000 people fled. The rest, I am afraid, have already surrendered to the traitors. We are back. In terms of combat power, we should actually have an advantage, but Zhang Yunhai is cunning and changeable. We still have to try to avoid losses. After all, he is only our first enemy. We have other enemies, and if other enemies hear that we have returned, they will surely send a large army to attack us. The main purpose of their attack this time is to catch them off guard. They have disappeared for too long. It is estimated that many people have long thought that they are all dead and never thought that they would return. Zhang Yunhai has 5 heavenly ways. His strength was comparable to mine at the beginning, and it will not be much different now. Beside him, the more difficult ones should be the other two fourth-level dragon generals of the heavenly god, the black dragon general Zhang Yongxiao and the white dragon general Zhang Yunwei. They are husband and wife, Zhang Junjian said. They all knew this, so they mainly introduced them to Zhang Zizai. The four great dragon generals were once the four most talented, promising, and powerful members of the Peak Dragon clan. They were all personally appointed by Zhang Yunting. At that time, there were three people who possessed four heavenly ways, namely, the Golden Dragon General Zhang Yunfan beside Zhang Junjian, and the Black Dragon General and the White Dragon General who defected to the traitor. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng Qing Yang. Chapter 1400. Gold, silver, black and white, the four great dragon generals, were once very powerful, but they never expected that the two black and white would become Zhang Yunhai's followers. In their words, this is called a wise man who knows the times. The harm brought to them by these three traitors is even more serious than that of outsiders. If not, there would be no internal and external troubles, leading to the total collapse of the Peak Dragon clan. In addition to Zhang Yunhai and the two great dragon generals Black and White, some of the other gods were born after the war, and some were helplessly controlled. Although they may be similar to Zhang Zii in their current team, it is unknown how many people will work for Zhang Yunhai at that time. Zhang Yunhai, Zhang Yongxiao, Zhang Yunwei. For revenge, they rushed forward, and in this endless void, a series of brilliance passed through. Perhaps no one knew that there was such a group of thousands of gods approaching the core of the Peak Dragon clan. The place where the Peak Dragon clan lives is called the Peak Holy Dragon Mountain. It is a mountain comparable to the size of the god's domain. It is extremely huge. Countless Peak Dragon clan live on this Peak Holy Dragon Mountain. The rocks on it are actually as big as land. From a distance, this Peak Holy Dragon Mountain is even bigger than the world tree of living beings. The closer you get, the less you can see the whole picture. The dragons like to move in their original form, so at this moment, you can see countless dragons flying on this Peak Holy Dragon Mountain. This is the real home of the Peak Dragon clan. The Supreme Dragon clan of the Sacrifice Dragon God domain has so many dragons in total, but there are definitely not as many of them that can be transformed into totem beasts as what Zhang Zizai sees. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Here is our real home. Zhang Junjian took a deep breath. His eyes were fanatical. In fact, when all the gods present saw the Peak Holy Dragon Mountain, their expressions were almost the same as his. This is indeed their former home. All the memories of their growth are still here. Even the descendants of the gods, their descendants, and even their relatives are still here. Coming here, it seems as if I saw the scene of the shocking battle at the beginning, and saw my relatives, friends, brothers, countless god kings and ordinary ancient gods, who died in the brutality of foreign races. There were countless life and death hatreds. When they thought of these, their hearts were bleeding. What kind of grief would make them come here, and after seeing their home, even their blood was trembling. Everyone, Peak Holy Dragon Mountain, we are back. Zhang Junjian's voice was also trembling, and countless life and death hatreds piled together to form a monstrous anger. Shameless traitor, today, you will pay a heavy price for your despicableness. Jinlong General Zhang Yunfan gritted his teeth. Today's Peak Holy Dragon Mountain is very quiet, not at all like the moment when a storm is about to come. Remember, only kill traitors, don't implicate others, let alone the people. This is our home, not a battlefield, Zhang Junjian said. Yes. Everyone was so eager. Zhang Zizai was also deeply moved. He was not born in that era, so some anger and hatred should not be empathized with by reason. However, he could feel it passionately. Perhaps this was the resonance of blood, the hatred of race, the contract of life and death, and his mission. He had never seen Zhang Yunhai, his uncle, but Zhang Zizai believed that he would recognize him at first sight, because this was a person who pushed his parents and compatriots into the abyss. Go. Under Zhang Junjian's command, they were infinitely close to the peak of the Holy Dragon Mountain. Their movements were not big. They did not want to cause a big commotion. To take back their homeland, it did not need to be so huge. As long as the person who created the sin paid the price, it would be fine. The direction they were heading to was the highest position of the peak of the Holy Dragon Mountain. On the top of the mountain was Zhang Yunding's Dragon Lord Holy Palace, and now, I'm afraid it has been occupied by Zhang Yunhai. They descended silently over the Dragon Lord Palace. So far, not many peak dragons have seen them. You know, there are countless dragons living in the peak Holy Dragon Mountain, and even some totem beasts flew past them. However, no matter how many peak dragons there are now, they can't compare to the glory of the past. The peak dragons of that era were the center of the origin of the land, the core of the universe. And now, the peak dragons are oppressed by the other 5 peak races. Do they still have dignity? Zhang Junjian's face was indifferent. He was supported by the gods. His eyes swept towards the Dragon Lord Palace. His voice was like a bell. Traitor Zhang Yunhai, come out and die. The voice was not loud, but it was heard enough in the entire Dragon Lord Palace. I believe that many peak dragons could hear it. But the strange thing is that this voice, which was enough to make Zhang Yunhai tremble, did not attract any reaction. The Dragon Lord Palace was silent. Traitor Zhang Yunhai, come out and die. Zhang Junjian didn't get too close to the Dragon Lord Palace because he didn't want to use it as a battlefield. It was where he grew up and his home. The war had left it in ruins, and he didn't want to destroy it again. When he heard the second call and still didn't call out anyone, he felt something was wrong. Retreat first. His intuition made him feel something was wrong, so he led the gods to retreat directly. He never expected that at this moment, a great formation of heaven and earth suddenly enveloped the entire peak Holy Dragon Mountain and trapped them in it. This great formation of heaven and earth had hundreds of millions of totem patterns, which was definitely more complicated than the totem formation of the heavenly intention of all living beings. These totem patterns were entangled and combined around them, completely trapping them in a cage. The peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation has been opened, at least a month in advance, and they know we are back. Although they were surrounded by this great formation of heaven and earth, those countless totem patterns had begun to suppress the harassment, but Zhang Junjian was still very calm. It's impossible. Except for the Life Yuan Lord, Life Yuan Empress and Ruokan, no one knew that we had obtained the life tree seeds. The Life Yuan Lord would definitely not spread it out, so who spread it out? Zhang Yunyan frowned and said, they really didn't expect that they would be ambushed after coming here. Now, they have been trapped in the peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation, which is the peak dragon clan's defensive attack totem formation against the enemy. Built on the peak Holy Dragon Mountain, it has a history of hundreds of millions of years and is the creation of countless peak dragon clan elders. Today, it was used against its own people. Zhang Zizai also frowned, because he didn't expect that the people here actually knew they were coming in advance. If the 4 peak races also knew, then he must open the origin cave immediately, otherwise he might not even have time to escape. Just as he was getting ready, a burst of laughter suddenly came. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1401. You are such a shameless person, Zhang Yunyan. The living spirit Yuan clan treats you as a relative, but you do such shameless things. You even dare to steal the living spirit tree seeds. You are really a despicable villain. The voice was a bit greasy, and it made people feel very uncomfortable. The voice had come, but the person who spoke had just come out of the Dragon Lord Holy Palace. There were actually a large number of gods traveling with them. At a glance, it was known that the number was close to 1,000. I understand. It may be that the living spirit Yuan Queen or Ruokan was worried about involving the living spirit Yuan clan, so they leaked the news to Zhang Yunhai. They said that it was my uncle who stole the living spirit tree seeds, so they could clear their relationship. Zhang Zizai's brain was quite flexible and he saw it at once. In fact, it was mainly because he knew that this guy was unwilling to give up when he defeated Ruokan, and he would definitely come up with a revenge idea. They have now cleared their relationship, but it has made Zhang Zizai's revenge plan several times more difficult. The other party was well prepared, so of course it was difficult to take him down. In that case, the four peak races should not know. Because the living beings Yuan clan does not want to make it public, and Zhang Yunhai will not reveal it for the sake of the flower of destruction. He only wants to eat us alone now, Zhang Junjian said quickly. In this way, they who had just fallen into chaos calmed down. At this time, their enemies have appeared. In addition to the gods, countless peak dragons can be seen on the peak Holy Dragon Mountain. They walked out of their residences and looked at Zhang Junjian and others in the sky. Perhaps for these young lives, this group of people who suddenly appeared is a distant legend. Obviously, Zhang Yunhai will not let the newborns know the truth at the beginning. Zhang Zizai has seen Zhang Yunhai. He is a middle-aged man who looks very gentle. He has a small mustache and looks very upright and decent, like a scholar, full of righteousness. It is completely unimaginable that such a face would do such a betrayal. Even his relatives were killed. Such a person turned out to be his own uncle. Beside him, there was indeed a couple. They were the other two of the four dragon generals, Zhang Yongxiao, the black dragon general, and Zhang Yunyi, the white dragon general. Both of them looked indifferent. Facing these former friends and brothers in front of them, they had no intention of looking at them anymore. At this moment, their eyes collided. In fact, under hatred and anger, there was also entanglement. In Zhang Yunhai's team, some gods were the descendants of the gods on Zhang Junjian's side, and even husbands and wives, brothers. Now was the time for relatives to meet, but now they were in two different camps. This should have been a happy event of returning, but the reality was not like this. Some of them had a blood feud with them. Zhang Junjian's eyes met with the gentle and elegant Zhang Yunhai. Son of a sinner, I didn't expect you to live to this day. Back then, you and your son didn't pay for the crimes you committed, and didn't pay for the lives lost by our peak dragon clan. So, are you coming back today to pay tribute to those dead souls with your life? Zhang Yunhai's voice shook the entire peak Holy Dragon Mountain. Sure enough, evildoers always want to dress themselves up in a high-sounding manner. Unfortunately, Zhang Junjian didn't want to pay attention to this at all. He was between heaven and earth, standing tall and upright. He had nothing to say to all the peak dragon clan who were paying attention to them at the moment, because the right to speak was always in the hands of the winner. He pointed his finger at Zhang Yunhai and said, "Why bother to argue? If you have the guts, come up and fight me. If you want my life, come and take it yourself. You are used to stabbing people in the back, so now, you don't have the guts to fight head-on, right?" Now the entire peak Holy Dragon Mountain is dead silent. Countless people of the peak dragon clan are looking at the two teams in the sky. They are a little confused. Many people don't even know that there are so many gods in the peak dragon clan now. Where did they come from? Zhang Junjian's words only earned Zhang Yunhai's ridicule. He shook his head and said, "Son of a sinner, you are still so reckless and brainless. You killed all the people of our peak dragon clan back then. Your life does not belong to me, but to all living beings. Isn't it better to let all living beings deprive you of your dog life?" Zhang Junjian. He looked very confident. "So, is it useful to use the peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation on your own people?" Zhang Yunyan shook his head. "Who said it's useless? I've been changing for many years. I knew that you sinners would come back and fall into the trap. Now, let you try the anger of all of us, son of sinners, and you sinners. Our Peak Dragon clan has fallen into such a situation because of you. Because of you, we suffered heavy casualties. Today, we will use your blood to commemorate those departed souls. All the Peak Dragon clans, follow me, contribute your strength, and kill these eternal sinners. Especially Zhang Junjian, Zhang Yunhai's excited voice echoed between heaven and earth. Zhang Zizai finally knew why he was so confident and sure. That's because, this Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation and the Heavenly Intention Tank formation of all living beings in the Chaos Demon realm are the same principle. This guarding formation gathers the power of countless living beings, and the beings of the Peak Dragon clan are much more powerful than those in the Chaos Demon realm. Part of this terrifying power is now gathered on Zhang Yunhai and the gods around him, and another part is acting in the formation diagram, directly suppressing Zhang Zi and others who are trapped in it. Originally, the strength of both sides was similar, but Zhang Yunhai changed the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation. Maybe he had done this for so many years, but it is really useful now, which made Zhang Zizai and the others fall into a passive position. The will of all living beings is indeed an indelible will. They never expected that the first opponent of this return was not Zhang Yunhai, but the living beings of the Peak Dragon clan. This is very helpless, but there is no way, because after that war, it was Zhang Yunhai who became the Peak Dragon Lord, and the right to speak was in his hands. He could tell those who were born later who was the sinner, who was the traitor, and who was the savior. Now it seems that in the new life, the savior is him, Zhang Yunhai, and Zhang Junjian and the others are the sinners who have returned. This was unexpected. But, if this can scare them and make them give up, then what is the point of them coming here? Zhang Zizai always believes in one sentence. Paper cannot cover fire. Justice is in the hearts of the people. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 1402. In front of all living beings, Zhang Yunhai was full of righteousness. He had obviously made a lot of preparations for this moment. All the gods of the Peak Dragon clan, on behalf of the entire Peak Dragon clan, I welcome your return. You once made great sacrifices to protect our Peak Dragon clan. Our descendants will remember your contributions, but you should not be with the sinners anymore. It was Zhang Yunding who brought disaster to our clan, and Zhang Junjian was a shameless accomplice. You were bewitched by the traitor. Today, if you can get away from Zhang Junjian and return to our Peak Dragon clan, from now on, you will still be a part of our Peak Dragon clan. Welcome, you can go home. With you, our Peak Dragon clan can be stronger. His loud voice spread throughout the Peak Holy Dragon Mountain, and all the Peak Dragon clan could hear his call. Come back. Gods, please return to our Peak Dragon clan. The once glorious Peak Dragon clan is now really too decadent. It ranks at the bottom of the entire origin land. Anyone can even bully it and seize the territory that originally belonged to them. If these thousands of gods can work for him, it would certainly be a good thing. If he can get the flower of destruction, it will fulfill his dream. Then he will be the only master of this world in the future. Now many sentient beings are calling for the return of the gods under his leadership. Such a trend is very beneficial to him. Come back. Many people are calling. Of course, they don't want to see their own gods killing each other. After all, some gods are relatives and couples, but now they belong to different camps. The group of gods who returned with Zhang Zi are still trapped in the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation. However, under Zhang Yunhai's call, the gods around Zhang Junjian were unmoved. They have been forbearing for so many years, they all know the real truth, they came back from sleeping on straw and tasting gall, just to make the traitor pay the price. How could they surrender? The anger in their hearts is not much less than Zhang Junjian. So, they are indifferent. Zhang Yunhai, don't do these boring verbal arguments, you are a traitor with a ruthless and wolfish ambition. What shameless things have you done? We know clearly in our hearts who is the real sinner of the Peak Dragon clan. We have seen it with our own eyes. Don't use your boring tricks to confuse people. It's meaningless. Today, there are a total of 973 of us, all living and dying with the young master. If you have the ability, come in and kill us. Xuanhuan, the general of the Golden Dragon, said in a deep voice. They simply disdain to play these tricks to confuse people's hearts. There are always people who know the truth, but they just haven't spoken yet. Xuanhuan, don't think you can escape punishment. You are also the culprit for serving the sinners and bewitching everyone. You will also die today. Zhang Junjian, Zhang Yunfen, and Zhang Yunyin, the three of you have committed a big mistake, and now you still have the face to return. Today, I must kill my relatives for the sake of justice, and sacrifice your lives to commemorate the brothers who once died. The rest of you, please watch first. You are just bewitched by the sinners at this time. I will not hurt you. Wait until we kill these three culprits, and then talk to you in detail, Zhang Yunhai said loudly, and his words were supported by all the people again. Kill Zhang Junjian and the other three, and then use all the remaining gods. At least the number of gods in the Peak Dragon clan can return to the top three. At that time, there is no need to look at the faces of other peak races. His wishful thinking was very loud at that time. Okay, then if you have the guts to come in and kill us, we will accompany you to the end, Zhang Yunfen sneered. Don't miss me. Let me introduce myself. My name is Zhang Zizai. At this critical moment, Zhang Zizai stood up directly. It was time for the entire Peak Dragon clan to know him. Which cat or dog are you? Zhang Yunhai had seen him a long time ago. This person stood next to Zhang Junjian. His aura was a little weird, like a god, but it seemed different. The so-called cat or dog is only a low-class scumbag like you who likes to play tricks to bewitch people. I am Zhang Yunding's second son and Zhang Junjian's younger brother. I am also the person you want to kill in the future. If you want to do it, count me in, Zhang Zizai said. He hasn't been killed by the curse of destruction yet. He still has time to give birth to a thing like you. Haha, since you are looking for death, then I'll send you on your way. Anyway, you are also the son of a sinner, Zhang Yunhai laughed loudly. Zhang Zizai's way of introducing himself here is a bit weird, as if he is going to die. Black Dragon General Zhang Yungxiao, White Dragon General Zhang Yunwei, follow me into the Peak Holy Dragon Guardian formation, and together we will kill the sinners Zhang Junjian, Zhang Yunfen, Zhang Yunyin. And this wild beast Zhang Zizai, who came from nowhere. Zhang Yunhai's order shook the heaven and earth, and made the Peak Dragons excited. Zhang Yunhai is a shrewd man. He is interested in the gods that Zhang Junjian brought back. Of course, he is reluctant to start a war directly. Even if they win, there will be heavy casualties. What he wants is that these 2,000 people will be loyal to him. The method is very simple. They just need to be leaderless, and they will naturally submit to him. Think about the gods behind him, didn't they submit to him in this way? And the key is that there are too many entanglements and connections between the gods on both sides, and even husband and wife are relatives. How can they fight each other? If they really fight, it will only be very chaotic. So, he would never let the two sides fall into war or chaos. That was not his goal. To capture the thief, first capture the king. He only needed to kill Zhang Junjian and others, and he would be done. No matter how difficult it is to tame the gods, they will be tamed by time. After all, they all want to go home and see their relatives and offspring. In terms of strength, the top parts of his side and Zhang Junjian's side are actually similar, but the key is that he now has the help of the Peak Holy Dragon Guard formation, suppressing his opponents while strengthening himself. Behind him, there are countless peak dragons supporting him with their power. In this way, he is sure to kill Zhang Junjian and others. They are all stronger, and Zhang Junjian and others are weaker, so what is there to be afraid of? Everything is in his plan. As for Zhang Zizai, who didn't know where he came from, since he is Zhang Yunding's son, he must kill him. He just wanted to laugh. There was such a stupid person who actually revealed his identity at this time, forcing him to kill him. I plead for all living beings. Today, I sentence Zhang Junjian, Zhang Yunfan, Zhang Yunyin, and Zhang Zizai to death. Let their deaths be a tribute to all living beings. Let their deaths be a tribute to our compatriots. Please help me, all the top dragons. 2 dragon generals, follow me to fight. The rest of you, all the gods, please stand back.